Hey guys, welcome to Overland Z and another Fortuner build. So I've spent the last few weeks just kind of tinkering away with the 12 volt system in the back of the car here. So we've gone with a REDARC 12 volt system in the back of the Fortuner here. Massive shout out to REDARC for providing us with this gear. We really appreciate it.
Thanks to our patrons for help making this possible. Learn more in the description below.
So yeah, I've spent the last, I don't know, week or two building this kind of false floor and shelf thing. So I probably want to get drawers at some point, but right at the moment I kind of want to keep this boot as open as I can. So I also went out and bought a heap of wire, a whole bunch of circuit breakers, little fuse board thingy so that I've got a place to mount everything from, terminals. So this will basically give me everything I need to get those two mounted, and then I've got somewhere else a bunch of wire to run through to some switches that I'm going to put on here. So I see this here is the top piece that sits up on there, and I've got some USB ports I'm going to put on the back for charging up camera gear and stuff, and then basically Velcro everything onto there. So it's all kind of out of the way and hopefully should be nice and tidy. So as a real quick rundown, we've got a 25 amp BCDC charger from REDARC, which lives behind the back seats there. I've got a 700 watt pure sine wave REDARC inverter, which sits up there nice and accessible to keep laptops, drones and power tools and things charged up on the road. I've got a temporary 75 amp hour AGM deep cycle battery that's going at some point once I find enough money to buy something lithium and a little bit better. Obviously I've got my Waco CFX 40 fridge, which I've been running for years, never had an issue, works fine. And I've basically just kitted out the whole boot with a whole bunch of USB ports and things like that. So when trying to decide on your wire, REDARC basically have a complete guide on their website and in their manuals about the sizes to go for. It comes down to how many meters you're running and how much current you're going to be drawing. I have probably overspec'd it just a little bit with the idea, I guess, that I will never have to touch it again, even if I decide to upgrade some of my gear later on. So like take this guy here, it's going to draw a lot of current, like it's a 700 watt inverter. I've gone with 35mm core wire. It's not going far, but I thought if I ever decide I want a bigger inverter, it'd be nice not to have to rebuy this, as it's not cheap. So when picking a battery charger, it's always good to choose something that can charge the battery you've got and maintain that battery well. So you can run one of the old school isolators, and they do work, I guess. You're probably never going to get your AGM battery charged to 100%, as they just can't pump out the voltage properly, and they also don't follow the charge profile that a deep cycle battery requires. If you're going lithium, you definitely need a DC to DC charger. You can't just charge them off your alternator output. With modern vehicles, they quite often have smart alternators or temperature sensitive alternators, as this thing does, where the voltage varies a little bit, or in the case of a smart alternator, a heap. No, sometimes they do just cut the voltage completely, and a isolator is going to struggle with that, and that's where a proper DC to DC charger comes in. So this guy is a REDARC BCDC 1225D, so it's basically a 12 volt 25 amp DC to DC charger that has a solar input. And I went with this basically as, realistically, I'm not going to run probably more than about 100 amp hours batteries in this, and a 25 amp output is more than enough to charge them up within a couple of hours of driving. One other thing to keep in mind when you're placing your battery and charger is neither of them like heat. So putting a battery in the engine bay is fine, but you will get much better life and performance if you can put it somewhere else. And same with the battery charger. Like, a lot of people mount the DC to DC chargers behind the grill, and that works brilliantly if your battery is close. You want to keep the charger and the battery as physically close together as you can. As you guys can see, I've mounted mine in the cab, and yes, when the car's parked it probably gets a bit warm, but when you're driving, which is when it's charging, there's cold air obviously being pumped around the cabin because I don't want to be too hot, and it kind of keeps everything well within that zone of efficiency. I've got a circuit breaker in here already, and that runs to the Anderson plug for the trailer. Alright, so it's all bolted up. Now I'm basically going to follow this wire. Jordy runs down under the car, down again. I'm going to come up under the passenger's seat and into the car. Basically, I don't really feel like chopping into the firewall if I don't need to. So under the car here, Toyota, they've got these like fuel line clamps, and I've used them to run wires in the past with zero issues. So the front one there, that one there, and then the grommet here, I'm going to run the cable into the car. Alrighty, so I've had a bit of a think, and I'm going to mount the DC to DC charger here, so nice and close to the battery, and nice and close to all my wires coming in from the front of the car. Alright, we are very slowly getting there. So I've got obviously the inverter circuit breaker, I've got the DC to DC charger circuit breaker, I've got the DC to DC charger mounted, got my helper buddy here. Yeah, we're filming, mate. And basically, I'm gonna put some hooks in here for the battery. It can sit down here for now. And I have one last wire here to do to run from the DC-DC into this guy. And then I have to loop back under there and out to the battery. Oh, I kid you not, I spent the last few hours at making cables, but we're here. So I've got the BCDC charger mounted up. It's all wired in, and I tested it out basically by chucking one of my negatives to the charger one, and it seems to all be working. I've got a basic fuse box here, and that's just coming straight off this load fuse, and that will also run out to the battery out of the DC to DC charger. We've got the main cable here coming in from the front of the car, and that's just hooked up straight to there. The earth runs up and hooks into one of the 3-row bolts back there, and it all seems to be working. And I've got a just a common point for the ground, so basically everything else I can just hook up to this guy in theory. So yeah, it's a reasonably basic system that fits, I guess, what I need as a video producer on the road. Yeah, things like an inverter, lots of people can get away without them, let's be honest, and most people don't need, but I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 USB ports in there. But plugging everything in, it's amazing how quickly you can get through all this stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a very quick rundown. The false floor system, I'm still trying to decide whether or not that's what I want to do long term. Part of me wants drawers, and part of me quite likes this basic setup. You know, it gives me space to slide everything in and still kind of use it as a boot. One thing that will probably be going is that fridge. I have used it for years now and it works perfectly, but I'm not super keen on the chili bin style fridges anymore. I think that they take up a lot of space. I don't want a fridge slide as they weigh more than the fridge itself. So I'm thinking of going for a drawer, and then another little sneak project I'm working on that fridge might go into, or maybe I'll just get rid of it. I'm not quite sure yet. So one complete overkill thing I have always wanted in a car is running water. And I thought, this is a family vehicle. If you ever owned a kid, you know how dirty they get. And thought we'd put some mains water in. So basically I've got a switch down here. That turns on my water pump, and we get water. How cool is that? I know that is complete overkill for most people, but I'm so pleased with it. We used it on a trip recently, and like leaving the beach, kid covered in sand and stuff, dog covered in sand and stuff, give them a quick hose down before we leave. It's awesome and just makes life so much easier. And I've got the front runner footwell water tank here. You know, while little dude's little and our dog's tiny, we don't need the space down here as such. And I thought it would make sense just, you know, chuck a water tank there and I guess make use of what is quite a dead space. It's got an outlet on each side and gets over the transmission tunnel with a cutout in the middle. It works really well and holds roughly 40 litres. I haven't quite managed to fill it all the way up, but yeah, I'm super stoked with it. It's a nice bit of gear and like it's super tough. I'd have no issues putting my feet on it.